This video is on volume of cones. Looking at the examples above, what do you notice about the volume of a cone compared to the volume of a cylinder with the same radius and the same height? So if you look at example 1, it says the cylinder and the cone below have the same radius and the same height. So the volume's been given for the cylinder, which is 120 cubic inches, and the volume for the cone is 40 cubic inches. And then if you look at example 2, they have the same radius and height, and then we have 90 and 30. So do you notice any similarity from the 120 to the 40 and the 90 to the 30? If you notice that we're dividing by 3, you would be correct. So the volume of a cone is 1/3 of the volume of a cylinder. So what do you notice about the volume compared from a cone to a cylinder? And that's only if they have the same radius and the same height. So we're going to write the volume of a cone is 1/3 the volume of a cylinder if they have the same radius and height. All right, the volume of a cone will always be 1/3. We just talked about that. It's 1/3 the volume of a cylinder with the same height and radius. The formula for the volume of a cone is V equals capital B, and that matters, H, divided by 3, or sometimes you will see it written as V equals 1/3 capital B H. Now, the capital B stands for, oh, that's the next part, sorry. Since the base of a cone is a circle, the area of the base is found by using pi r squared. So this capital B is the area of the base, which is the pi r squared. So instead of having the capital B in there, we're going to use the formula volume equals pi r squared H divided by 3. Let's go ahead and practice number 1. So the formula, we're going to just rewrite that, is volume equals pi r squared H divided by 3. We're going to plug in our values. So volume equals pi is 3.14, the radius is 5 squared, the height is 12, divided by 3. And then you're going to type all of that into your calculator. And you get 314 inches cubed. Okay, let's try the next one. If you want to pause it and try it yourself, you are welcome to. So the formula is volume equals pi r squared H divided by 3. Pi is 3.14. The radius, now be very careful. Remember, the radius is from the center out. So if all the way across is the diameter, which is 22, then this would be 11. So our radius is 11 squared, and then our height is 10 divided by 3. So you're going to want to type all of that in. And you get 1,266 it doesn't really say what to round to. We're going to go to the 10th place, 0.5 centimeters cubed. Okay, number 3. The volume of several cylinders is shown below. The cylinders are not drawn to scale. Use the dimensions in the table below to find the volume of each cone. Then, under the cylinder column, record the letter of the cylinder above that could have the same height and the same radius as the cone. Not all the cylinders will be used. Okay, so first of all, let's find the volume of this cone, which is pi r squared h divided by 3. So we're going to use this information right here. So volume is 3.14. The radius is 8. So we're going to have 8 squared times the height, which is 2, divided by 3. So type all of that into your calculator. I should have left a little more room for my answer. And you should get 133.97. And I'm going to go ahead and go to the hundredths place, just because if I went to the tenths place, the 7 would round the 9 up, and the 9 would then round it up, so we'd actually have 134, which would be fine. Excuse me, but we're just going to write it like this. Okay, now, that's the volume of the cone. Remember, these are the cones that look like this. The cylinders look like a can of soup. And so a couple of things. Here's a couple of things you could look at. For finding the volume of a cylinder, remember the volume of the cylinder formula is just pi r squared h. So technically, you could just look at this portion before you divide by 3 in order to find out the volume of a cylinder, since these two are supposed to have the same radius and the same height. Or you could take the answer that you got for the volume of the cone and you could multiply it by 3. But if you just multiply what's circled in green there, you'll see which one of those cylinders would have the same height and the same radius. And you should see answer C. Okay, if you feel pretty good about this, you can pause it and you can try the next two and then turn it back on. All right, so for this one, you should have done pi times, now the radius, they give you the diameter, so you got to be careful. You got to cut that in half. So the radius would be 3 squared, and the height is 4, and then divided by 3. So type that in. You should get 37.68. But then to find the cylinder, that was before we divided it by 3. If we'll look at just that part, you'll get the 113.04, which is this one, letter E. Okay, the next one, 3.14 times the radius is 2.5 squared times the height, which is 2, divided by 3. And you get 13.08. And then if you go and just check the top part, remember this part will give you the volume of the cylinder, which is this one, answer B. Okay, number 4. The cone below has a diameter of 12 inches, or 12 units, sorry, that's all the way across, and a slant height of 10 units. Now, just to remind you, slant height is different than height. This is slant height, so this is 10. And so we're going to stop for a minute because they say find the volume of the cone. Well, in order to find the volume, we have to have this height right here. I should have probably made that another color. We need to have this height right here, and we don't have that. Now, we should know that the radius would be 6, half of that diameter. And I'm hoping that you see that this is a right triangle, so you could actually use the Pythagorean Theorem. You could do a squared plus b squared equals c squared, so we don't know a squared plus 6 squared equals 10 squared, and you could solve that to find the height. And if you did that, then you would have the height and the radius, and you would be able to find the volume. but we're not going to go through that one. Number 5 says Isabella constructed a cylindrical vase that has a volume of 63 cubic centimeters. So here's the cylinder, and it has a volume of 63 centimeters cubed. Jason has constructed a cone, and it has the same height and the same radius. So that means the radius is the same on both of these, and the height is the same on both of these. What is the volume of Jason's cone? Well, let's remember the relationship between these. If these have the same radius and the same height, then what that means is we can take the volume of this cylinder, and if we just divide by 3, we'll get the volume of that cone. So 63 divided by 3 would be what? 21. So the volume of the cone is 21 centimeters cubed. Number 6, a cone has a volume of 300 units. Okay, so the cone has a volume of 300 units cubed, and a cylinder has a volume of 100 units cubed. So it must be a smaller one, right, if it's only 100. Is it possible that the cylinder and the cone have the same height and the same radius? Why or why not? Well, remember, in order to have the same height and the same radius, it would take 3 of these to equal this. Or if we went backwards, we would need to take, we know to take the volume of the cylinder, divide by 3, and we should get this. Well, 100 divided by 3 isn't going to be 300, so the numbers are swapped around. So, do they have the same height and radius? No. And we can just say 100 divided by 3 is not 300. Number 7, a cone has a volume of 942 cubic inches and a height of 9 inches. What is the radius of the cone? So let's write the formula. Volume equals pi r squared h divided by 3. And let's plug in what we know. We know the volume is 942. We know that pi is 3.14. We don't know the radius. They want us to tell us, so we have to write radius squared. And we know that the height is 9. And we still have this divided by 3 here. So we have an equation we have to solve here. I would get rid of this divided by 3 first by multiplying both sides by 3. So you're going to do 942 times 3. So do that in your calculator first. You're going to get 2,826. The 3's here will cancel, and we're left with 3.14 times r squared times 9. Well, we could go ahead and do the 3.14 times 9, and we get 28.26 r squared. Almost done. We've got to get rid of the 28.26 in front of the r squared. It's connected by multiplication, so the opposite of multiplication is division. So we're going to divide. And so we get r squared equals 100. And then we are going to do the opposite of squaring, which means we're going to square root. And so r is 10. So the radius would be 10 inches.